thing. Outer layer here is the capsule. Next layer here that looks kind of lighter than the other layers, that's the cortex. This layer inside here is the medulla. All of these triangular structures that you see in the medulla, those are called renal pyramids. The very tip of the renal pyramid is called a renal papillae. Okay, these little tubes that connect to the renal papillae, these are called the minor calyces. If I point to one of them, you should say minor calyx. Calyx is singular, calyces is plural. Okay. Now, where two or more minor calyces fuse together, so like right here and right here, this is called a major calyx. Okay. Major calyx. Where the major calyces fuse together here in the middle, this is called the renal pelvis. The renal pelvis connects to this tube outside the kidney called the ureter. Okay. Now, in these regions here between the renal pyramids, you have these regions that sort of look like cortex. These are called renal columns. So renal pyramid, renal column, renal pyramid, renal column. Okay. Now you have to know your blood vessels too. So this is the renal artery here. This is the renal vein down here. Okay, these first branches of the renal artery, those are called segmental arteries. Branches of the segmental artery that pass between the renal pyramids, those are called interlobar arteries. Okay. Interlobar arteries branch and arch over the top of the renal pyramids. Those are called arcuate arteries. And then these little branches off the arcuate arteries, these are called cortical radiate arteries. The veins are going to follow the arteries. So you have a vein next to the cortical radiate artery, that's a cortical radiate vein. You have a vein next to the arcuate artery, that's an arcuate vein. Next to the interlobar artery, that's the interlobar vein. The difference here, there's no such thing as a segmental vein. The interlobar arteries dump directly into the renal veins. Renal vein, excuse me. Okay, now what you're seeing right here is you're sort of zooming in on one of these regions right here. So this is cortex, this is medulla. Okay, this is a renal pyramid. Okay. So this is a papillae right here, okay? These blood vessels right here over the top of the renal pyramid, those are the arcuate artery and vein. Okay, these arteries right here that go into the cortex, that's the cortical radiate artery. Okay, now what you're seeing new here is these little branches off the cortical radiate artery. Okay, these little branches off the cortical radiate artery are called afferent arterioles. Afferent arterioles are going to lead you to these structures here, okay? These little white structures, those are the nephrons, okay? Now, specifically, the afferent arteriole leads you to this sort of network of blood vessels right here, sort of tangled knot of blood vessels. That's the glomerulus, okay? Around the glomerulus, the white around the glomerulus is the Bowman's capsule. Together, the glomerulus and Bowman's capsule are called the renal corpuscle. Now, what you're doing here is you're zooming in on that region right here. Okay, so this is the afferent arteriole that leads in. This is that tangled knot called the glomerulus. Now, the blood vessel that leads out of the glomerulus is the smaller of the two blood vessels here. So this is called the efferent arteriole. So afferent arteriole leads in, it's bigger. Efferent arteriole leads out, it's smaller. Now what you don't see here is on top of the glomerular capillaries, or on top of the glomerulus, you have these cells here. You see the nucleus of those cells in blue. Those cells wrapped around the capillaries are called podocytes. You're seeing just the capillaries here without the podocytes on top of them on this side. Okay, so it shows you that it's on top. Okay. This set of cells here around the edge, this is Bowman's capsule. The space here between the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule, that's Bowman's space. Okay. Now, The blood is filtered here from the glomerulus and captured by Bowman's capsule, and then it's funneled into these tubules in the nephron. So this one right here that you see is the proximal tubule. Now find that on here. So here's your glomerulus. Okay, the tube that it's connected to is this coiled tube right here, and this coiled tube right here. That's proximal tubule. Proximal tubule is going to pass this filtered blood down into the medulla. This is called the descending limb of the loop of Henle. This region of the loop of Henle that comes back up from medulla back up into cortex, this is the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Where it starts to become coiled again here, those are called that's the distal tubule of the nephron. Distal tubule of the nephron dumps into this tube that goes back all the way down through the medulla. This is called the collecting duct. Any questions?